It is the 7th day of Christmas, friends, and my true love gave to me homemade elderberry syrup. We are in the winter season of colds and flus and respiratory infections, and Lord only knows what else may come our way. So I make a habit of having fresh made elderberry syrup in our refrigerator at all times, not just the winter. We ingest it at all times throughout the year. It's a really great way to give your immune system a boost, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. It just means that by having some elderberry syrup into your, I would dare I say daily, right, routine, especially during these colder months, it just helps give your immune system that boost it needs to help fight things off. Maybe you still get sick, but maybe you're not getting as sick as you would, like as bad as you would otherwise, right? That's how I think about it. And so elderberry syrup is a really great way to do that. We take, dare I say, a shot of elderberry syrup every morning. I have to say this because I just find it so funny, and maybe you will too. So I literally, ever since my children were really young, given them a shot of kombucha, of homemade kombucha, and a shot of elderberry syrup every day at breakfast. That's just what we have done, and I really wanted to ingrain that into them at a young age. And I'm talking probably like starting around 2 to 3 years old. And we literally did it in shot glasses. And we still do it today. I mean, they're a little bit older, but we still do it today. And what's so funny is for the longest time, and I think it happened not that far away, like not that far back, where my kids would be on vacation somewhere and we'd be in a gift shop and they'd see shot glasses. They'd say, Mom, look, they have kombucha cups or they have elderberry cups. And I'm looking around, does anyone hear that? Because yes, we use shot glasses in this house, but not for those kinds of shots. So my elderberry recipe is very similar to what you would find online with other folks. And the base and the most important part, obviously, are the organic elderberries. You buy these dry, link it down below. I have bought from Amazon and I've bought from Mountain Rose Herbs. The link below I'm going to show you is to Amazon with the Frontier or Star West Botanicals. Those are the two big ones that I've ordered, those two brands. Very reliable, very reputable. They come in a pound bag. They are dried berries. And my jar is filled to the brim here, but you can see, I mean, they're dried, they shrivel up, but this is what you're gonna use, and this is really the crux of a successful elderberry syrup are the dried elderberries. So to continue on with the recipe, I also add clove. Now I am using whole clove and I'm adding a cinnamon stick, and I'm kind of grouping these together to talk to you because I'm using the whole form of these spices. If all you have is ground cinnamon and ground clove, just understand, yes, you can use it. It may not have the same potency, right? Because that herb has been dried and ground, and it may not be as potent as it would be otherwise. However, the biggest thing I find is that when you're straining your solids out of your elderberry syrup, obviously some of those ground spices like the clove or the cinnamon may come through the sieve, even with a cheesecloth. And so you just have to be careful that you might have some of the ground powders floating in your elderberry syrup. So I wanted to make you aware of that. So I use about 1 to 2 tablespoons of whole clove, a stick of cinnamon, and then I always add fresh ginger. So I chop up about 1 inch, maybe 2 inches worth of ginger, peel the skin off and then chop it. And I don't have to chop it finely. Like don't think you've got to mince everything so tiny. In fact, you don't want to just throw a chunk in. The more surface area you have exposed, the more of those medicinal properties you're extracting on the stove. But I just have it roughly chopped. And again, 1 to 2 tablespoons, which is about 1 to 2 inches worth of ginger. Now, when everything is strained, then we add our raw honey. So I'm not really going to talk about the honey yet. But the last thing I add to my elderberry syrup that might be a little bit different is astragalus root. This is a medicinal herb, a medicinal plant. The root is harvested, it is dried, and that is what you see here. So I choose to put a little bit of astragalus root as well in my syrup. Now, astragalus root is really good for overall immune health and also for fighting upper respiratory infections. And so that's why I find it to be a perfect addition to the syrup. It does have a little bit of a bitter flavor, bitter taste. And so I'm only going to add about 1 to 2 tablespoons as well. The only tried and true measurements I use are 3.5 cups water to 2/3 cup dried elderberries. We're going to get everything into a pan on the stove and heat it up to a boil. I'm going to turn my burner on to high. 3.5 cups filtered water goes in, along with 2/3 cup dried elderberries. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of whole clove, about 2 tablespoons of dried astragalus root, 1 cinnamon stick, and 2 tablespoons roughly chopped ginger. We are going to bring that to a boil uncovered, and then we're going to lower the temperature down to about a 1 or a 2 on my stove here and really simmer it at low for probably a good 20 to 30 minutes. You do want the moisture, the water, to reduce, not necessarily by half, but maybe at least by a third, and that really helps concentrate your syrup. And then we're going to let that cool, strain out the solids, add in our honey, and you're good to go. We are clearly at a boil. I'm going to turn this down to a 1 on my stove and give it a stir. And now we'll simmer it for about 20 minutes. It's been about an hour. I took the elderberry mixture off of the stove after about 20 to 25 minutes of simmering. It's been cooling now for at least 45 minutes, and we're ready to strain it out. So all I do is just kind of press it through, make sure I get as much of that liquid out. Now, I'm gonna tell you that most of the time, I will just compost all of this. However, if you're feeling frugal, you can actually save these remains, put them in some sort of container and keep it in the fridge. And then next time you make another batch of elderberry syrup, add this in with it. I wouldn't necessarily change the ratio of your new ingredients. I may add a little bit more water, but I would add this to it, and it just helps to extract even more of the medicinal properties here as much as possible. Because it's already been through one cycle right here, like we just did on the stove, I wouldn't necessarily use it as the sole mass for a next cycle. And I'm using random words here, so I hope that makes sense. Because it doesn't have as much of the medicinal properties left, right? We've already extracted a lot of them. But I do sometimes save that and then add it to my next batch, and it just helps make sure that I'm getting as much as possible and makes my dollar go a little further. So in the bowl, we've got our liquid, right? Our strained liquid. But I also have a quart jar here, and I've got some honey in the bottom. Now, this is going to make about just under a full quart of elderberry syrup. So that's why I've got a quart jar here. And as far as how much honey you add, it is entirely up to you. It's really dependent upon your level of sweetness. You want to make sure you're using raw, unprocessed honey. Whether or not it's filtered, unfiltered, that doesn't necessarily matter. All that means is that the honey has gone through a straining process to get any of the little bee bits and bee parts that may remained during the extraction. And it does happen. So filtered or unfiltered, that's personally your preference. But you do want to get raw local honey The raw honey basically means it's not been heat treated, so all of the really good properties that are in raw honey are present. You just don't want to go to the grocery store and buy that bottle of honey that doesn't say raw and maybe not from a different country. You really want something local. So I have in here about just under a half a cup of raw honey. You can add as much or as little as you want. It's just how much sweetness you want in your elderberry syrup. I try to make it just sweet enough to make it palatable so that my family enjoys it, but not overly sweet. So all I'm going to do is pour my cooled liquid in with the honey. Put a lid on. And you can see, right, it's just under a quart. It's not quite at the top. And this is where just shaking it. So my liquid is not entirely cold, it's just slightly warm, which will not hurt the honey, but it does help the honey kind of break up and become a little bit more viscous within your syrup. And you can just make sure and tell by the bottom, right? Does it have all of the honey incorporated? So the bubbles will die down from all the shaking, but you'll see we've got a good amount of elderberry syrup here. And as you heard me say earlier, right, we take about a shot full a day. So that's probably, depending upon how big I fill the shot glass, between 3 and 4 tablespoons. You don't even have to do that much. It's really up to you and what you feel you need at any given day. If you're feeling a little down, you're not feeling as great, right? But I would definitely recommend at least 1 to 2 tablespoons a day during these winter months to kind of help keep your immune system up. So what I would do is, if I wanted to give this as a gift, is I would probably put this in either pint or half pint jars, and so you could get a couple more out of this rather than just one. Put some pretty labels on it and maybe a pretty bow, and it's a fantastic gift for those that you love. Now, elderberry syrup, as it's been made, like I've just shown you, needs to be stored in the refrigerator. Thanks for joining me on our elderberry journey. Let me know if you make your own, and if you do already make your own, I'd love to hear if there's anything different that you put in yours. Stay healthy, stay well, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.